So we're going to go over what John went through with his epic experience of having a kidney removed due to renal cancer. Right out of the gate, John, like when they said this was renal cancer, you were already going through a medical issue, weren't you? Like you couldn't pass urine and you were already catheterized, right?
Well, yeah. Basically, one night it was nothing but blood when I would try to urinate. And then the next night it was blood and blood clots. Now the blood clots were about this big and your pee hole is about that big. So the blood clots clogged up my pee hole and they had to put a catheter in the hospital the night before. And yeah, guess what? The catheter hole wasn't big enough either. So the catheter became clogged and my bladder overfilled. So yeah, I was going through something pretty horrific before I even went to the surgery.
Well, now on the pain aspect of it, I remember that night I was here. You were going through the aspect of the catheter was inside of you in your bladder, and the hole of the catheter wasn't big enough. So you had built up enough pressure from not urinating for what, 18 hours?
Close to, yeah.
So you went
hours, like 12
hours. You hadn't urinated. You had all this pressure built up. And it was basically forcing the urine around the outside of the catheter through your urethra. Is that what was going on?
That's correct.
So, and again, on a scale of 1 to 10, how insidious was that pain just out of the gate?
On a scale of 1 to 10, that pain was probably a 15. Because think about the worst you've ever had to take a leak. Okay? Say you're in a car and you're driving and you had to hold it for like an hour and how uncomfortable you were. Now imagine taking that uncomfort and multiplying it by 12. That's how bad it was, because I hadn't urinated in 12 hours, and plus my body was not only creating urine, it was filling the urine with blood. So my bladder was probably 4 times as full as it was supposed to be, and it was huge. When they showed it on the CAT scan, it was like this big. It's supposed to be about that big. It was about that big. So yeah, that's the pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, a 15 right there. So yeah, that was pretty bad.
You were under a bit of pressure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a little bit of pressure there. So I'm just putting you in the mindset of when it came out, when the ER surgeon just kind of let you know out of the gate, after you went through this episode. This was before your second visit to the hospital on the same day, when they said that kidney was coming out.
Well,
he just basically laid it out, and the guy at the ER was like, nope, that kidney's coming out of here. Don't be surprised if you're not in here Monday getting prepped for surgery.
That's what he did, yeah. And I'm a hypochondriac, so I'm laying in the hospital for 12 hours. I can't pee. I'm in a lot of pain. And all of a sudden, this man just bursts into the room and says, you've got a mass in your kidney, and by the weekend, which was 2 days from then, you will be having your kidney removed. Okay, so that's something that, well, nobody wants to hear that, but definitely a hypochondriac does not want to hear that. And I basically went into some form of shock because I was freaked out so bad. And I just wanted to crawl into a hole and die, basically. That was it. I shut down.
When you went back the second time, you made the joke when I came into the hospital, after I dropped Jonathan off, that you literally exploded.
Yeah, I did.
When they were shifting you around, getting you in bed. And I remember there was a 4-quart pan in between your legs, not to get too graphic, but it was a 4-quart pan, and it was filled up with 2 quarts of fluid, mostly blood.
Yes.
And that's what basically you exploded out of you when they finally adjusted the catheter to get the clot through the catheter piping.
Yes.
Okay,
don't trust emergency room doctors. I mean, some of them are probably good, but even the urologist told me that the ER doctor was off his rocker, and don't listen to ER doctors. They're not just supposed to burst in the room and tell you, oh my God, you have brain cancer and they're going to have to remove the right lobe of your brain in 2 days, so you might as well get ready for it. They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to say something along the lines of, we found something that may not be good, we don't know what it is, and you have to go see this other doctor to tell you what they're going to have to do about it. And yeah, that's how they're supposed to do that.
Well, ER doctors are, they're there to pull you back from the brink.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of
emergency.
Well,
they're supposed to stabilize you and send you home.
As far as diagnosis goes, it belongs to another physician that's a specialist. But, Okay, now when you're getting prepped for surgery, now you had mentioned that staying in the first night waiting for surgery, that first night was okay. Like, you were getting fed, and your friends were stopping by, and you were watching TV, and you had your laptop, and that wasn't a big deal. But you say that, now what was on your head? Because you knew the surgery was coming.
Well, yeah.
Like, it was more comforting, I'm assuming, a little homier aspect, but in your head, you were thinking about that surgery.
Well, I was scared to death. I'm not going to lie to you. I've never had any type of major surgery in my life. In 45 years, they've never had to cut me open for anything, and I didn't know what to expect. They're removing a kidney, basically something that you kind of need. I mean, you can live with just one, but it's nicer to have two, you know? So I was in a pretty rough mindset. I actually had to have the nurse come in and give me a sleep aid that night because there's no way that I could have slept. But yeah, was my mindset going into that.
So you were like a kid before Christmas, but a Krampus type of Christmas.
Yeah.
Where you were going to get drug off and eaten by monsters.
Yeah, more.
I got you. All right. Well, now, we're not going to discuss too much of right after the surgery because the medications, I mean, you didn't know where you were, what you were doing. But like when you became, when you got your faculties back and you could process actual thoughts and go back to deductive reasoning, so to speak, what was your experiences like, feel about the containment in the hospital room?
Well, you're in a bed that's not easy to get in and out of. You have tubes running in and out of various parts of your body, at least 2 IV tubes, a catheter, the tube that runs down your nose into your stomach so you don't choke on your vomit in the middle of the night, 2 giant leg warmers on your legs that keep your blood clots from forming in your legs, and the O2 monitor attached. It's not that little alligator thing that they put on. It's actually taped onto your finger. And the oxygen tube that runs around your ears and into your nose that has this little flap that goes down over your mouth that monitors your CO2 output. Basically, you're trapped. You're trapped. You're not tied down to the bed, but you ain't getting out of that bed without some kind of help. And then they tell you that you have to get out of the bed because they're not going to let you go home. They're not even going to feed you until you pass gas. And guess what? The anesthesia that they give you, plus the spinal block that they give you to keep you from not freaking out with the pain, paralyzes your bowels, and sometimes can take up to a week before you can even pass gas. So now you have that added pressure. You really, really would like to go home, but you can't go home until you pass gas. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe that, but that's not good. That's not great.
So never has someone's life been hinging on a fart before, to your knowledge, until this happened.
Pretty much.
Okay, that's a unique tale. But you saying what you were describing with the equipment and the apparatus that were hooked up to you, all the monitors and sensors and IVs, I'm assuming, and the weird leg compression things, that you actually became a prisoner in your own skin.
Basically,
like
yeah.
you were your own prison cell. Now, what was it like to walk the first time with assistance? I mean, did you feel awkward, kind of like you were walking on your hands, or?
Well, you got a gash running basically from your solar plexus down to, your thing. And it's stapled together.
You could say penis.
Well, from your solar plexus to the top of your penis. That's the hole that they opened up in me. And in doing so, they cut through all the major muscles that run along your abdomen. Now, you don't think a whole lot about what those muscles do for you when everything's going normally. But basically, those muscles allow you to stand upright. If you didn't have those muscles, you just kind of flop over forward or backward. And once they're cut, they kind of lose their integrity. And I don't know how to describe it, but it almost feels like it's been shifted. Like before the surgery, everything lined up. And after the surgery now, like this part's up here and this part's down here. And when the first time you stand up, It's almost like everything from your crotch to your chest is attached to each other. You know how like when you unroll some duct tape off the roll, and when you rip it, it kind of like flings back together, and it's all stuck together, and you got to pull it apart. That's what that feels like the first time you stand up. Like everything's starting to separate and pull apart, and you have to do that. They won't just let you stay in bed, even though you just had a major surgery, because without walking, without getting up, your bowels will never wake up. You'll basically be stuck in that hospital bed being force-fed fluids through an IV because your bowels will just stay asleep. So yeah, the first time standing up is not the most pleasant experience.
All right. Well, how many days were you in the hospital still doing your walks and cruising around with
I was in
with
the hospital,
tripods and whatnot that hooked up to your IVs?
Well, I was in the hospital a grand total of 7 days. 1 day before the surgery, then the day of the surgery. So 5 days prior to the surgery, I was in the hospital.
After you were post-operative. Okay.
Post-op. 5 days post-op. And then, as the days went on, different things went away. Like the tube in my nose finally went away. Actually, I refused to have it in my nose any longer and made them take it out. That's the one thing that I refused treatment for, was having that goddamn tube in my nose, because even the nurse said that they need to come up with a new way of keeping your stomach from filling up, because they wouldn't put that, they could use that, let me put it this way, they could use that tube on terrorist suspects, and if they had that tube in their nose for a day, they would tell them everything that they wanted to know. It's that unpleasant. So yeah, as the days go on, you start losing things. Like I lost the extra IV on maybe the 3rd day. The tube came out the day after the surgery. The things on my legs, because I was able to get up and walk more, I'd say day 3 after the surgery, those went away finally. So yeah, as the days wear on, you lose the tubes and the extra attachments, but you're still not able to pass gas, and the doctors come in and ask you every day, did you pass gas today? And you want to lie, because the whole freedom thing is hinging on whether or not you pass gas. You really want to lie, but then in the back of your mind you're like, well, if I lie and I didn't pass gas and they send me home, I could explode or something, because the gas can't come out and it's going to build up, and I'm going to turn into thunder from Big Trouble in Little China.
Nice reference. I appreciate that John Carpenter film reference. And mentally, like I said, when you're in post-op and you just basically, overnight, you've got nothing but your thoughts. Because I'm assuming you weren't sleeping the whole night through.
No.
Like what, just a thought in your head. Was this a big mortality wake-up call for you?
Yeah, well, let me explain the whole sleep thing, because you just had a major surgery. You've had an organ removed. You've lost a lot of blood. You're basically, I guess, anemic, because you're missing so much blood and your body hasn't built up your supply again. And the thing that you would think that they'd want you to do is rest. You would think they'd want you to get as much sleep as possible, and yet every single hour during the night they walk in and grab this or pull that or stick you with this or draw blood from that or give you this medication or change this IV out. I swear to God, I didn't sleep for more than an hour at a time every night after my surgery while I was in that hospital. Like I said, you would think they'd want you to get some rest, but guess what? Nope, it ain't happening. They're waking you up at least every single hour. So yeah, that's the whole rest thing. And the mortality thing, absolutely. Before this, I'm 45 years old. Before this happened, I could have cared less. I'll use movies as a reference. Let's see. We'll go with the whole superhero movie thing. It hasn't, as the movies wear on, there's cliffhangers at the end of this movie, there's cliffhangers at the end of that movie, and you don't really think about it, because you're like, oh, well, I have to wait 2 years for the next movie, but who cares? I'll go see it 2 years from now. Well, after the kidney thing, I sit there and I think, well, I might not make it 2 years to see how this ends. So a lot of things like that happen in your head, and yeah, I've been contemplating my mortality quite a bit here lately, and it's not pleasant. Trust me, it's not pleasant. There's a whole post-operative depression thing going on. They say, you know, the postpartum depression that women have after they have a baby is probably a very real and very horrible experience. Well, I didn't have a baby, but they took out a major organ, and I actually had to go a week before I found out what type of cancer it was, and it could have gone either way. It could have been either what's called transitional cell, which is very bad and can come back very fast, or it can be renal cell, which is kind of bad and could happen to your other kidney depending on whether or not it spreads. So I had a whole week to go before I found out that it was actually renal cell and it hadn't spread into any of my lymph nodes. So just basically by taking out the kidney, they cured me of my cancer. You know, keep my fingers crossed, hopefully. So I had a week of that, and ever since then, I'm still not, and now 2 months out, I'm still not 100%. I'm still having, you know, some weakness issues and some sleep issues and some pain issues. So yeah, your mortality is definitely on your mind after you have a surgery like this.
Especially when you mix all those together, you're having pain, you know, it releases endorphins in your brain, and you go through sleep deprivation. You know, your sleep schedule gets interrupted, and you definitely have some psychological effects there. And on top of that, you know, your body has to readjust from it being used to being processing with 2 kidneys down to 1. Plus it's shifting organs back into place. So, I mean, it's all really valid points, but you're going through quite a bit of a burden there. Now, what positives, like, what's your more positive outlook from this? Like, what gave you a better outlook on life from this?
Well, quit smoking because basically the doctor said that smoking is probably what caused this. So I've been cigarette free for 2 months now, and I'm actually doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about that. The fact that they didn't find anything else in any other part of my body kind of makes me happy. So I'm pretty much in the clear as far as that goes, at least for 6 months to a year, where I have to go back and get checked out just to make sure that nothing else pops up anywhere else. Trying to think of other positive things. I haven't got to many other positive things yet because I'm still not able to do a whole lot. I can't go back to work yet. I'm still having an issue with some type of dizziness in my head, and I'm a driver. I drive for a ride sharing service, and I can't go back to work because I won't put my customers in harm's way, afraid that I might have a dizzy spell while I'm driving them to the bar one night, so I haven't been able to go back to work. I'm still trying to come up with a few positive. I'm positive that I'm happy that I'm still here with my wife and my kids. I'm positive about that. I'm positive that I didn't die on the operating table. I mean, that gives me a pretty decent outlook.
That was a win, yeah.
Other than that, I'll get back to you when I think of more.
All right. Well, it sounds like the progress is pretty much dead on with what most people go through. I mean, everybody deals with a surgery differently, but after a major one like you had, where they couldn't go through the back and get your kidney out, they had to go through the front and basically just treat your all the organs inside your abdomen like they were boxes in a storage unit. Just move them around out of the way to get to one in the back.
Yeah, and I'm a fat guy.
Crazy.
I'm a fat guy, so when they cut me open, they had to shift all that fat and all them intestines and everything out of the way because
and they couldn't take none of that fat out for you.
They don't take that fat out. They kept that fat in there, but my kidneys here, back here. They had to go through all this to get to there.
Now, why couldn't they give you a complimentary liposuction to make it easier on them, so there would be less layers for them to go through?
Apparently, liposuction is dangerous and can kill you.
But organ removal surgery is perfectly fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's what they told me before the surgery. Oh, don't worry about a thing. We do this type of thing all the time. Almost nobody ever dies from this stuff. Well, thanks a lot. I feel a lot better now.
I like being included in the almost part. Nice,
right.
Nice.
At least they, right before you go into the operating room, they shoot you up with something. I don't know what it is, and they don't tell you. But I think it is probably heroin or something like that, because once they put that in you, they could do whatever they wanted. The doctor could have teabagged me right on the operating room table while I was still awake, and I would have just smiled like, I like this. I like this.
So basically, if you're going to take the emotion of joy and turn it into a liquid and fire it in a vein, that's kind of what you think they gave you.
I'm pretty sure they gave me some form of heroin.
Just some form of unadulterated chemical joy they slammed you with.
Right. Because I had no fear. Once I was entered that operating room and laid on that table, I had no fear whatsoever. None. I was like, come on, let's do it.
All right, well, that sounds fantastic for a start to get that out there. And any final words you would like to throw out about the entire issue of cancer or surgery or family life or being a fat guy or having your whole life hinge on a fart?
Well, cancer sucks. Everyone knows that. In the last few years, I've actually lost 3 people that I know have been very close to me to cancer. My wife has been touched by cancer right before I had my diagnosis. She was diagnosed with a form of ovarian cancer, which didn't end up being that serious, but she had to have surgery over the summer, and as soon as she was recovered, I had to have my surgery. So cancer sucks. So I tell you what, my whole mindset before this was, I just don't want to know. If I had a weird pain in my back or in my stomach, I just didn't want to know, and I hoped it would go away. Do yourself a favor. If you feel something that's not right, go get checked out, because they need to catch that stuff early. If they catch it early, you have a better chance of surviving. You do not want to put it off. I did have a prostate exam, my first prostate exam, while this was going on, and it's not good. It's not pleasant. You won't have fun, but get it done. It only lasts for a couple seconds. It's over. So just do it. Just go for it. Bend over, spread them cheeks, and let the doctor check it out, because you'll thank him in the end, and he will thank you in the end too. Other than that, I love my family. I'm happy that I'm still here with them, and I will update you guys more on my situation in the future.
All right. That's it from John right now. We'll get back to you in about a week.